So, Tom, I was told you had not heard the clip from Valerie Plante,
Not yet.
so
I
I'm
only
going to
saw the writing of it.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
going
I'd
to
love to
play
hear
it
the
for
clip.
you. I'm going to play
Yeah,
it for you now. Now,
yeah.
I should point out the press conference that was called this morning was not to address Bonjour Hi or the OQLF study, was to talk about something the city is doing, which is called the Sponge Park. But the question came up, of course, based on the OQLF
Yep.
details that came out yesterday. Bonjour Hi was one of them. This is what she said.
People come to Montreal knowing that it is a francophone city. So though we want to be welcoming to everybody, and of course we want to make good business and everything, of course, but we should be proud and we should encourage people to only say bonjour.
There's that little laugh at the end, as if we can't be proud and encourage people just by using that silly little word. So give me your first reaction, Tom. You're just hearing this now.
My first reaction is that the English-speaking community came out in droves to support Valerie Plante at the last election, and I wouldn't be surprised after hearing that, and especially as you really well caught that little laugh at the end. The English-speaking community says it the next time, bye-bye, salut, ha, 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 ha. I mean, look, give me a break. What is wrong with a business person greeting someone in French and letting them know, by the way, here, I can serve you in English as well? What is wrong with saying bonjour, hi, and say it in a bunch of other languages as well, depending on the area that you're in. It's so petty. It's so totally inappropriate. This is a justification that it's so pulled out of thin air. She's trying to come up with some way of being on the side of those who are against hearing a word of English because it's all about the French city and everybody's coming here. Hey, start with your bonjour. And if you want to let people know that you can actually serve them in English as well, you're allowed to do that. And no, Valerie Plante doesn't have any excuse for what she's just said, especially after the support she got from the English-speaking community of Quebec last time around. I'd be very surprised to see that support renew itself next time around.
Yeah, someone just pointed out, apparently francophones have no problem with using, and the Premier has done this on numerous occasions, English words, c'est cool, puis des score, I mean, they're there. Why hi? Why that innocuous word bothers them to no end? I don't understand.
Because it became a thing several years back. We even had members of the English-speaking community who were liberal MNAs voting a unanimous resolution because it was supposed to be just so horrible to hear a single word of English. This just in. Look at the flag of the city of Montreal, Valerie Plante. You've got an indication of the roots of people, yes, from France, but also from Ireland and England and Scotland, all on the flag. Plus, so many people from so many other corners of the world who have come in. And, why not? If you're in Park X, you're going to hear people say Calimera. And if you're in Little Italy, you've got a nice big smiling buongiorno on top of everything else. Why not? Is this really offensive to you? Or is it only hi that's offensive? And that, I think, is part of the problem.
Yeah, and I said, when I asked this question of our audience earlier on, Tom, I said, what she needed to say was that if someone addressed you just in English and just said hi to you, maybe she'd have an issue with that. But as long as bonjour is in front of the hi, and the study the OQLF did showed that, right? It showed that of the 10,000 visits they made to merchants across Quebec, it was bonjour hi, still in that order, that had increased.
Are we allowed to point out the fact that with an $11 billion deficit, we still seem to have money to pay people to do 10,000 visits to see if the bonjour is before the hi? Oh, and what did it also conclude? That 98% of the time, no matter what, you get service in French, which is, by the way, my offer. I always repeat this. I get these letters, sometimes from people, emails, really upset with me because I don't understand how dangerous it is for French right now. And you can't get service anywhere in French in Montreal, don't you know? And I always offer to pick them up with my car. I'll drive you around to wherever you want in the city of Montreal. You tell me which stores we're stopping at, and we'll see if you can find a single store where you can't get service in French. Nobody's taken me up on the offer yet.
I will point out, by the way, in the press conference today when this came up, Jason Magner of the Gazette asked the question, what would you do, or, what do you do if you go to a store to be served in, and you can't get served in French? I will point out the beginning of her answer. I don't think we can get the clip in time. The beginning of her answer, you have it? Listen to this.
Do you support, when you go see the minister in a couple of weeks, do you support the idea of...
Okay, wrong clip. She basically said, I've never experienced that, but if I did... So the mayor basically said, I've never, ever had the issue happen to me.
Well, it's because it doesn't happen. Like I know that there were some newspapers, and some news outlets that would do everything. They'd send people around. And if after several days of banging on every door, you could find some poor person who happened to be from a cultural community who had just arrived and they were going and hiding behind the boxes at the back because they came in with a TV camera, they got their aha moment. And we found a store where somebody was hiding behind the boxes because they clearly couldn't talk to us in French yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the game that we've been playing to get stories to squeeze stories out of this, flogging it to death over nothing. You know what? The best news is that people get along. Nobody in the real world complains about Bonjour Hi. Only people who want to make political hay out of it, and much to their shame, the last time this came up, the Liberals voted with it.
I think that's one of Jean-François Liset's proudest moments, isn't it, Tom? The fact that they got everyone to vote?
Of course.
Yeah. All right, let me move on from that and talk about the poll that came out. So we've had two polls today, but let's talk about the Palace poll that came out earlier in the day, which basically shows the PQ. I don't know if you said this or not. I heard someone refer to it today as in a death spiral.
Yeah, well, the PQ.
I'm sorry, I meant the CAC. I'm sorry, I meant the CAC in a death spiral. They're third.
I take the Palace poll with a grain of salt, to be honest with you. That's the one that's in l'actualité because Palace, doesn't necessarily follow what are considered to be the rules that everybody else does as they're doing polling. So they come up with things like, the Liberals in second place, which doesn't seem to correspond to anything that anybody else is seeing in their polling right now. And I think it shows the fact that they're doing this polling from another province, that they have no connection to or understanding of Quebec, and their poll was heavily weighted in favor of the western part of Montreal because they were the people who tended to answer it. So I think you have to be very careful with a Palace poll in the province of Quebec. Sometimes they catch stuff, and sometimes they're not bad. But I think that if you look at the big Léger poll that's out today, you're going to see that the CAC is in fact has probably already hit its floor, and the PQ is hitting its ceiling in the sense that the PQ is its vote's starting to soften, losing several points after the very bad week that Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon had with his very dour, negative, dark speech that he gave at the convention, and then his weird answers to journalists the next day. It cost him quite a bit. Now, the PQ are still pretty excited about their leader. They all think that this means that we're heading for independence nirvana like tomorrow morning. But the next election is 2.5 years away. The Liberals still don't have a leader. And guess what? They've just announced the rules starting it's going to start in the next few months. It's actually going to start. It's going to be in the news a lot for the Liberals. They're going to be out there debating ideas. They're going to have really good people who are going to throw their hat into the ring. And it'll create a certain amount of buzz and excitement. And they're going to be competitive in the next provincial election. Nobody sees that on the radar now because amongst French voters and under 35-year-old voters, they're nowhere right now. But they will definitely be competitive in the next campaign.
I think even if and I understand about taking the Palace poll with a grain of salt here to show the Liberals all of a sudden, with no leader making these great inroads. So I'll take that for what you said. I wonder, though, Tom, is really the biggest story here the fact Quebec Solidaire is nowhere on this map?
I think that Quebec Solidaire is having a hard time right now. And one of the things that you can tease out of these numbers is that a lot of the Liberals, and I know so many of them, Federalists, NDP voters federally, and Liberal voters federally, Anglophones often, very progressive young voters who love the progressive politics of Quebec Solidaire, also make it very clear that they will never vote, something I've known for a long time. They will never vote yes in a referendum, and they will leave Quebec Solidaire in droves if the Liberals can come up with a presentable candidate who is a Liberal, because the Liberals have been doing a darn good job of electing Conservatives. And I'm not only referring to Jean Charest. I mean, Philippe Couillard was definitely a blue Liberal. He tilted Conservative on most, and if not all, the majority of issues. And I think that, and going back, Daniel Johnson, who was a wonderful guy, he was my leader for a while before Charest, but again, very conservative. And so if they are able to get a younger, actually Liberal, small L, somebody who believes in progressive politics, then a lot of those people will be drawn right back, both from Quebec Solidaire and from the CAQ, because there was a certain percentage that went over to the CAQ.
All right, listen, pardon me, with respect to this, the Palace data poll, I'm a little saddened now, Tom, to realize that the polling was not what I thought it was. We were all very excited about the fact that, the first headline was, oh, look, CAQ have fallen to third place, but you kind of ran down my parade here. So
Well, I don't have preferences in these things. I just try to use my experience to pull back a little bit and look at this objectively.
Yeah.
When absolutely nobody who does real polling here in Quebec is anywhere near these numbers, you have to say, okay, this is what do they always say? 19 times out of 20. Well, this is the one time out of 20. Then, sorry, not so much.
It's too bad. I had a theory to go with it, which was that people have finally decided they're tired of this government pushing this whole language issue down everyone's throat for the past couple of years, and that's why their support is starting to fall off.
Well, one of the reasons that they're in trouble, though, and they are in trouble, let's not kid ourselves, despite the fact that the PSPP and the PQ are back, the PQ in most polling is still out front. And the reason why Legault is in so much trouble is because there's no way to change anything at the CAC. It's a one-man show. It's a one-man party. There's no party. There's no Coalition Avenir Québec. There's no party convention where people can vote for or against their leader. The leader is the party. And so they can't do the normal thing, which is to say, hey, we're in free fall. Maybe it's time to start giving hints to François that we're willing to buy him a gold watch and he should move on and be replaced by Geneviève Guilbeault. Because that's not going to happen because Legault leaves, the party disappears. It was a summer romance. It'll just be gone. So I think that's one of the trickiest parts here. And the Liberals are in exactly the opposite position. Right now, they're in the dumpster, especially amongst French-speaking voters because they're not in the news. Marc Tanguay, fine fellow, but not a leader in any true sense, and he's never been elected to the job. So once they do go through the race and they do have debates of good ideas and they put somebody presentable in the store window, a lot of people are going to come in to shop.
All right.